Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby and today I'm going to be doing a thriller recommendations, and this will be the 4th time that I'm doing this kind of recommendations video. I'll put the links in the description for recommendations for thrillers videos 1, 2, and 3. I usually do these videos in October. I don't know why. I've always saved them for October every year because I feel like October is that perfect time of year where you want to read thrillers, but it's been 6 months since I posted my last one in October. I already have a list of 11 thrillers that I want to recommend to you guys, and so it's like, why should I wait until October? Like, I should be doing this video every 6 months because of how many thrillers I actually read. Maybe I thought I can post one now and then I can post another one in October. So yeah, I have 11 thrillers that I've read in the last 6 months that I feel the need to recommend to you because they're amazing, and I'm gonna tell you what they're about and tell you why you should read them. So, and yeah, as usual, if you're wondering why potentially some of my favorite thrillers or some of your favorite thrillers aren't on this list, then it's probably because they've already been mentioned on my previous recommendation videos. So I would recommend watching the first 3 recommendation videos before you watch this one if you're looking for a wide range of thrillers to read. So the first one I want to recommend to you is An Anonymous Girl by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Buchanan, and this one is a thriller that's about this like psychological study. So this woman named Jessica, who's a makeup artist, signs up for this anonymous psychological study that's run by the mysterious Dr. Shields, and the Dr. Shields slowly starts to become obsessed with Jessica, and like the psychological experiment slowly starts to creep its way into her own life. And the psychological experiment is actually super interesting and a huge part of the reason why I loved this book so much, because the psychological study starts to creep into her mind in her daily life, and like the psychological study has a lot of questions about like her moral choices and like what she would do in certain situations, and then like those questions start to creep into her daily life, like what would I do in this situation, and like does Dr. Shields approve of this, and like the way this study really like takes over her consciousness is what I loved so much about this book. Like, oh my god, it has the trope that I really like in thrillers where there's a married couple and then there's a one person on the outside, and like you don't know who you can trust in the married couple, and it's just like a whole mix of lies and secrets, and it's just so good. So good. 5-star thriller. Highly recommend. The next one I have to recommend to you is No Exit by Taylor Adams. I feel like this one is thriller but also kind of like horror. It's just like on the edge of horror because this one follows this girl who is in Colorado during this really bad snowstorm, and she gets stuck at a rest stop in the snowstorm and she's trapped there. It's like she can't leave, and while she's there, she's trapped there with 4 other people, and she sees in the parking lot this van that has a child in a crate in the back of the van, and she knows that she's trapped with a child abductor at this rest stop, and she's trying to figure out who she can trust and who was the one that kidnapped the little girl. And like, oh my god, this book is so intense. It's one of the most action-packed, anxiety-filled thrillers I've ever read because I just had so much anxiety the entire time I was reading this book. And if you really like thrillers that deal with like an isolated situation, like the entire book takes place in one place and it's just like you feel like you're trapped and you're isolated and you're just scared out of your mind, like I think you would love this book. This book is very like visual. Like I feel like I could see the entire thing in my head so clearly. The next one is going to be Verity by Colleen Hoover. This one is, a lot of people say that this one is a psychological thriller / romance. I don't super see this book as a romance. I mean, there's definitely some romantic elements of this book, but I definitely would consider this book to just be a psychological thriller. It follows this girl named Lowen, who's this struggling writer, and she gets the opportunity to write for Verity Crawford, who is this like super successful author, and Lowen gets the chance to write the last 3 books in her series because Verity was recently in a really bad car accident that has made her very unresponsive, and she's not going to be able to write these next 3 books. So Lowen gets the chance to, and so Lowen has to move in to Verity's household where Verity and her husband Jeremy live, and their kid is there, and things get very strange. This book fucking gives me chills sometimes because it's so weird and creepy, and like, oh my god, this book is so amazing. The plot twists are done so well, and this book like constantly kept me on the edge of my seat. Like, I finished this book in one night. I could not put it down. Freaking amazing. And like the ending just like slayed my life. and like holy crap, Verity. It's so good. It lives up to the hype that you've probably heard about it. The next one I have for you is The Broken Girls by Simone St. James, and this one is a kind of historical-ish. Back in the day, I want to say it's like the 1950s, there's this like haunted boarding school that all these girls are going to, and one of the girls disappears in 1950, and this book simultaneously, like every other chapter, it follows from like what was happening in 1950 when one of the girls disappeared at this haunted boarding school, and then it also takes place in 2014 during like the present time. We follow this girl who's a journalist, and she's trying to figure out what exactly happened at the school, and the journalist is related to one of the girls that went to the boarding school. And this book was so creepy and spooky, and it was so atmospheric. Like, I feel like this is like the perfect read for like October or like that spooky time of year. Like, oh my god. It was just so good, and I feel like the plot twist and the writing was just done so well, and it was just freaking fantastic. Alright, the next one I have for you is The Lies We Told by Camila Way. This one has my favorite trope in a thriller, where it has two seemingly random point of views that come together in the most interesting way imaginable. Half of the story follows this girl who her boyfriend goes missing, and she's trying to figure out like what the heck happened to her boyfriend and why he went missing. And then the other half of the novel follows this girl named Beth, who has this very strange daughter named Hannah, who's just like this demonic child, and you're trying to figure out how the two time periods are connected. Really well done. I loved the pacing of this book, and the plot twists were done really well, and I love the trope of like a demonic crazy child character if it's done right. Like, for example, I didn't really enjoy Baby Teeth. I thought that book was just like very boring and very repetitive, and like it was overdone. Like, I don't know, I just didn't like it in that book, but in this book I feel like it worked so well for this, and oh my gosh, the story was just constantly moving because of the changing point of views. Like, it was just so good. The next one I have is Watching You by Lisa Jewell, and I will say a disclaimer that this one is probably my least favorite Lisa Jewell book that I've read yet. If you haven't read Lisa Jewell's other thrillers, like Then She Was Gone and I Found You, like, I definitely recommend those books over this one, but this one was still really great, and I still gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. I'm just saying the other ones I've read from her were 5 out of 5 stars, so yeah. But this one follows this like community of people. There's this one girl, like our main character that we're following in this book, kind of gets involved with the head of the school dude, and then there's like this controversy there, and then it also follows the head of the school dude and his son is like really creepy, and he like watches all the girls in the neighborhood, like he kind of is like a stalker, like weird, and it just follows like a bunch of different people in this neighborhood, and you just get to kind of like see from all of their point of views, and it's like building this really big mystery, and it's just really, really great. But I just really loved the writing style. Like, Lisa Jewell is freaking amazing. Like, you can always trust that her books are gonna be amazing. The next one I have for you is An Unwanted Guest by Sherry Lapina, and this one is really great because it feels like the game Clue like come to life because it takes place in this hotel. It's like another one of those isolated things where if you like a book that takes place all in one place, I think you would also really like this one, because it takes place at this little hotel that's like everybody's trapped there during the snowstorm, and then somebody gets murdered. Like, there's a dead body, and they all start freaking out and questioning who did it, and it's one of them, and it's like the classic whodunit story. This one was just done so well. It was so much fun to read, and I was wrong about who done it. I thought I was right the whole book, and I wasn't, and it was just very surprising and different, and I just really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a ton of fun to read this one. Alright, the next one I have for you is Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. Also has the trope I really like of a very unreliable narrator, because sometimes the bitch lies. So it follows this girl named Amber, and she's recently been in a car accident, and she's been in a coma. She thinks that her husband doesn't love her anymore, but she also thinks that her husband is involved with however she got to be in a coma. But then she also throws out that disclaimer, but sometimes I lie. And so then the whole book you're like, who do I trust? Do I trust this girl that's narrating like the book, or do I trust her husband? Like, did something happen? Like, this whole book is so fascinating because you're trying to figure out what caused her to go into a coma. Just the whole thing is so good, and this one also does the like alternating chapters, so we get one chapter in the present when she's in a coma and she's trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, and then you get the flashbacks to like her childhood, and it just all builds to this like giant conclusion at the end, and it's just so shocking and so amazing and just a really entertaining time to read this one. Right, the next one I have is The Winter Sister by Megan Collins, about this girl who her sister died 16 years ago, and they never really figured out what exactly happened to her sister. Like, nobody was ever arrested for her murder, and nothing ever happened, but she always thought in her gut that it was her boyfriend, like her sister's boyfriend at the time, that killed her. And then this story takes place 16 years later during the present, when she has to go back to the town that she's from to take care of her sick mom. And while she's there, she decides to finally uncover the truth about what happened to her sister and really dig deep and just go and find out. It's like a little cliche when it comes to thrillers, because I think it definitely has a lot of like cliche thriller plot lines and stuff, but it's also still like very entertaining to read, and there are definitely some plot twists that I didn't see coming in this, which I really enjoyed, and I just thought this book was great. I had a really great time reading this. This one is a little bit more depressing though. Like, I feel like this is a more serious thriller, if you will, because it deals with a lot more like depressing things, like the mom is just really depressed because of the daughter dying, and like, I don't know, like I just felt like this book was a little bit more serious than the typical thriller that I read, but I really enjoyed this one, and I was really surprised by this one, and it was fantastic. The next one I have for you is Before She Knew Him by Peter Swanson, and I do want to throw out another disclaimer and say that this is also my least favorite Peter Swanson book so far, but that's not to say that this book isn't great, because it is great, and I still gave this one 4 stars, but all of his other books that I've read have been 5-star reads, so again, I would definitely recommend his other stuff over this one, but I still think that this one is definitely worth reading, and it's definitely really great. This one follows this woman named Hen and her husband, and they go over to their neighbor's house for like a neighborly dinner, and while they're at this dinner, they see this trophy in the guy's office that was involved in a murder that happened on their street a couple years ago, and they know like the trophy has like the kid's name on it that was murdered, and they know that that was like a missing piece of evidence from the crime scene, and so they're automatically like, oh my god, our neighbor is a murderer. And then it follows from like different points of view, so we get Hen and her husband's point of views, but then we also get the guy that they think is a murderer's point of view as well, and like the multiple point of views in this book really does great things for this story. Like, I just thought this story was so entertaining, and trying to figure out like what actually happened and like who was lying about who they were, and like, oh my gosh, this book had one of the most shocking plot twists, like really good plot twist at the end of this book. Like, I did not see it coming at all. Like, I don't know why. Like, now, like, looking back on it, it might seem more obvious, but like, I literally did not see it coming, and I was freaking shook by the plot twist at the end of this book. Like, oh my god. So I love when a book can surprise me with a plot twist. Like, this one was looking to more be like a 3-star read for me until that plot twist, like, what? It was just crazy. It was a wild time, and I highly recommend this book because of that plot twist. Alright, and the last thriller that I have to recommend to you is my most recent read out of all of these, and that is My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downey. This one is basically Dexter meets Santa Clarita Diet. And what I mean by that is that this book follows this female who is a serial killer. Like, she is the serial killer, so it's like the female version of Dexter in that way. And then her husband is in on it with her, and he decides that he's gonna go out and find people for her to kill. So it kind of reminds me of Santa Clarita Diet in that way, because it's like the husband is the one going out to find the people for her to kill. This book is like a combination of things that I love. Like, I love Dexter, I love Santa Clarita Diet, so this book was like the perfect combo for me. Like, it's just so fascinating. Like, I don't know why I love books so much that follow these like psychotic characters, but oh my gosh, I love the fact that this entire novel is told from the husband's point of view, which I think is a very interesting choice with a story like this. And the like final like sentence of this book, oh my god. So good. So good. Those are all of the thriller recommendations that I have for you today. Hopefully I will read enough thrillers that I love by October, and I can make another thriller recommendations for you in October, because I feel like I should really make this a 6-month thing, you know? But yeah, definitely check out my previous thriller recommendation videos. And also, let me know what your thoughts are on any of these thrillers that I mentioned in this video. Like, are there any of these thrillers that you also really love? Or are there any of these thrillers that you don't really enjoy? Let me know if you plan on reading any of these thrillers now. That always makes me really happy when I can convince someone to pick up a book. Let me know your thoughts, and thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I will see you guys soon with a new video.